G'day everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Remote Learning webinar number 5. This one is the Inclusive Classroom Part 1. There is so much to share with you and to deliver to you around the inclusive classroom that it's just not all going to fit into one webinar. So I'm thinking 2, maybe 3, possibly even 4. We'll see how we go. So keep an eye out on our space that aka.ms/Vic events for these webinars, and you can have a look at what's coming up as they're announced. The other thing too is, remember, a lot of this builds on what we have done already through our other webinars. So I will share the link with you on how to access our webinar recordings that we've done already, but that is aka.ms/DET webinars. But nevertheless, I will make sure that you have that. Today, I've got Anna Suzuki from the Microsoft Store in Sydney. She's actually on here doing Q&A. So I'm going to handling the Q&A. So I'm going to let her come off mute and introduce herself. How are you going, Anna?
Hi, hello everybody. I'm doing very good today. How's everybody? No, they can't answer.
Did you have a very busy? Yeah, they can't talk back. Did you have a very busy day, Anna? I bet you did.
Yeah, it's been quite a busy day, and it's gonna get busier in the next 2 hours or so. So exciting day.
Yeah, cool. All right, so please keep an eye out for your Q&A button that is on there, and I will from time to time stop and ask Anna if there's got any questions. We'll only field the questions that are relevant to what we've been doing up to this point in terms of this actual webinar, and then more broader questions we can hold on to until the end. So let's get going, Anna. So again, our aka.ms/Microsoft Remote Learning, that is your landing page, your one-stop. I shouldn't say one-stop, because from there it's the first stop. From there you can bounce off to all the other resources that we have around Microsoft Remote Learning, and I hope that there's lots there that's going to help you reach your students. So this is our agenda today. We're going to have a look really quickly at the Microsoft Educator community, which is your online portal. Then we're going to talk about the inclusive classroom and what we mean by that when we talk about that coming from Microsoft. Then we're going to spend time looking at reading support with Immersive Reader. And then after that, I'm going to show you Immersive Reader across Microsoft 365, Immersive Reader in Minecraft, and then we'll look at Immersive Reader in Teams, of course, which is our one hub, one stop for everything you need 365. Then I'll let you know where to go from there with further learning, and then we'll go through to Q&A. So Microsoft's mission statement is to empower every person and every organisation on the planet to achieve more. That is genuinely our mission statement, and that mission statement came in when Satya Nadella, he's on the screen there, when he came in and took over, he shifted the mission statement to be this. And you can see there that I've underlined every person, because what I love about the inclusive classroom messaging is it is right on point with exactly what Microsoft is trying to achieve. That is, we want to empower every person, and every person sometimes means people that need a little bit of extra support, not necessarily people that are what we would perceive as being in the mainstream. Perhaps they may be on the peripheral of society. Maybe it's because they're challenged by some sort of gift, which can happen with gifted children, for example. They have unique challenges in their learning. And then we'll also have kids sometimes are challenged because there might be some sort of deficit that they're having to deal with as well. But definitely our mission is to empower every person on the planet to achieve more. So at Microsoft, we do believe in the power of global learning and the power of learning from each other. So on that note, I want to remind you of the Educator community. All right, so education.microsoft.com. That's the Microsoft Educator Center. I'm sorry, it's just been rebranded. It's not the community anymore. So the Microsoft Educator Center has a series of online courses for you to take. You can take those courses at your own pace. You can come and go in the middle of the courses, etc. But when you do complete the course, you do a little quiz and you get a recognition, whether that's a badge or you get a certificate which says that you've completed that course. More importantly, though, is inside that inside your account, when you create an account, it actually keeps a record of everything you've done, and this is actually recognised by your teacher registration board. So for those of us in Victoria, that's the VIT. So if you're looking for ways to hit that special needs tick that special needs box, which we all need to do in our PD now as VIT teachers, then please pop along to education.microsoft.com and I'll show you some specific courses a little bit later. If you want to know more about the Microsoft Educator Centre, please visit or listen to one of our earlier webinars. So just talking about where we get into Office 365 and how we access it, well, we go to www.office.com, and then we go ahead and sign in. Now, for those of you that are outside of the Department of Education, you're just going to use your normal email address and password. But for those of us that are in the Victorian Education Department, we need to make sure that we use our TO number at education.vic.gov.au. Please notice that it is not EduMail, it is not EduPass, it is education.vic.gov.au, but then you use your regular EduPass password. If you're from a school where you're using your own email address, you're not using EduMail, you may find that you can sign in using that, so go ahead and have a go. But if it doesn't work for you, please, your TO number at education.vic.gov.au. Very good. So in terms of looking at diversity in K-12 classrooms, and by K-12 I mean, you know, prep, kindergarten, we want to make sure that we're engaging every learner. So I just want to share some stats with you, and this is outside of remote learning, all right? This is just figures that hit us every day when we were back with our students in our classroom, and that is up to 50% of instructional time can be lost to managing students' needs, including using assistive technology. 50% of instructional time for a teacher can be lost. Now you think about how much more true that is going to be for those kids who don't have the teacher in the room now and are trying to access materials remotely. There's certainly going to be a real challenge for them. Now today's workshop and the next few webinars that we run are certainly not going to solve every problem, but I do believe we're going to solve quite a few of those problems. Virtually 100% of schools in Australia have students with identified learning difficulties enrolled, and obviously those students are going to be in a remote learning environment now. So none of these issues go away now that we're working remotely. Almost 20% of students in Australian school require inclusive education support, and almost 30% of New South Wales students are from a language background other than English. So when we think about inclusivity, it's not just diagnosed challenges, but it can be things like EAL backgrounds, right? Students that come from a background other than English that actually need that level of support. All right. So I will make these slides available to you so you can check out those sources there if you want to see where I got those stats from. Now, we talk about building a foundation for success. Inclusive education tools give more students personalised access to their curriculum, optimise educator time, and improve learning outcomes. So looking at this through the lens of, in inverted commas, normal school, that is, we're not in a remote situation, remote learning situation. We want to make sure that the technology does help the students reach, but it also helps the educators not having to worry so much about supporting the student, that the technology can do that for them. Okay, but even more so in a remote learning environment, remote learning context. We want to make sure that students have an increase in their independence and also a reduction of stigma, right? So if we're in a classroom, we want the technology to be supporting the student, not necessarily an aide or the teacher or even another student. We want to make sure that educators are more empowered to engage every learner, and we also want to make sure that institutions have reputations as positive places that promote equity and inclusion. So when we roll this stuff out to our students, it actually reflects really well on the school that we work in, saying that this is a community that actually cares about equity and inclusion. So our inclusive classroom really hits these 4 different areas. Now, we're not going to hit all 4 of them today, not even close, but I did want to share just sort of the overview of where Microsoft actually plays in this landscape. And the first one is reading support. All right, so really important, as we know, if children don't really stay up with their classes by the time they're in grade 3 in terms of reading and stay up with the cohort, they can actually be left behind for the rest of their education experience. So we need to make sure that reading is nailed first. Writing support as well. We've got a lot of tools in our Microsoft stack that are going to support students with writing. Math support as well. There's just a little bit there, but some of the stuff that we've got is quite cool. I did show a little bit of it in my forms workshop yesterday, so you can go back and have a look, but I will definitely make sure that I tackle that in another webinar. And then of course speaking and listening as well. So we have some really good tools to help speaking and listening and communication, not just teacher to student and student to student, but also teacher to parent, which is really quite cool. But today we're going to focus primarily and really only on reading support. So what happened was in 2015, Microsoft held a hackathon and a group of Microsoft staff got together and decided they were going to try and tackle dyslexia. So what they did was in walking away from their normal jobs for a week, they got together, different people from different parts of the business all came together and decided they were going to work on, as I said, on dyslexia and how they're going to support students. And what they came up with was they called it learning tools. Back then it was called learning tools, but it won the award, as you can see, and it continued to grow in its impact to the point now that it's right across the Microsoft stack, and especially in Office. So there's so many different tools now that have this, what was once called learning tools. But learning tools became so popular and people outside of the education experience started to use this tool. So we rebranded it as Immersive Reader. So what I'm going to show you, you may see people refer to it as learning tools, but as I said, now it's been branded as Immersive Reader, but mainly because it's much bigger than just people in an education context. And you're going to see that as we go along. So I'm going to do our first little demo as Immersive Reader inside Word, inside Microsoft Word. Now there is a version of Immersive Reader inside Word, the desktop app. So I'm going to make that clear. There's two versions of Word out. Well, there's more than two versions, but there's two distinct versions of Word out there. One is the desktop app installed down on our Mac or on our PC, and the other one is Word in the browser. Okay, that is the online version. So I'm going to take us today, and I'm going to show us Immersive Reader in Word online. Okay, I'm going to tell a bit of a story and give a bit of a scenario, and let's jump into that right now. So where do we find Word online? Well, when we're up here in Microsoft Office 365, that is that www.office.com. When we click on Word online, we open it up. And for those of you that have never seen Word online before, it's very much like the modern version of Word. So if you're using Word on your desktop and it's an up-to-date version, you're going to see it's very, very similar. It really has a lot of what we're used to in Word, but not everything, okay? But for that sense of immediacy for sharing and stuff, it's really a great tool. But for us in this scenario, in this context, it's actually the perfect tool because it has many more features than the desktop app. So I want you to look at this piece of text here. I want to tell you a story about a little girl who's in grade 3, and this little girl is actually dyslexic. Now, as I show these tools today, I want you to try and see it through a much broader lens than just dyslexia. But in this context, this little girl, she is dyslexic. Now, she's been diagnosed. She has an aide who comes and works with her, especially in her literacy classes and also some of the other classes where literacy and text is a big part. Now, what happens when she sees this piece of text? The teacher may have given it to the class and the teacher has said, okay, everyone, I want you to read this. Now, what usually happens for her is the aide will come and sit with her and start to read with her. Now, that can be really, really embarrassing for her because she knows, you know, everybody else doesn't need help. They all read by themselves, etc. All right. But what happens now is with Immersive Reader built in, because she's using the same technology as everyone in the class, that is just a PC or maybe a Mac, and because she is using the same software, that is Word, that everyone else is able to access, it's going to reduce that stigma for her, right? Because she doesn't need the aid anymore, she gets support. But also, if we think about in a remote learning capacity, there's going to be a lot of students out there who the teacher's going to make a piece of text available to them and there is no aid in a remote context. There is no teacher, the parents might be busy with work, they may not even be home, and the student is unable to access this. So our little girl gets sent a piece of text by the teacher, there's no aid, there's no support. What is she going to do? Well, what she's going to do is she's going to find Immersive Reader. So the teacher makes it available to her in Word, all right, and then the student can actually click up here on Tell Me. Now, Tell Me is a great accessibility feature because for some kids, well, not just for kids, for many of us, remembering where everything is in all these buttons can be really daunting. So what Tell Me does, you can see here it says, tell me what you want to do. I might say, I want to look for Immersive Reader. And as I start to type Immersive Reader, you can see it brings the button right to me. Now, just to let you know, Immersive Reader lives up here in View, Immersive Reader. Okay, so it lives under the View tab. But in this case, we're just going to start typing Immersive Reader and click on the button. All right, now look what happens, right? Word is gone. And you can see over here that if I want, I can maximize my window space. So that way there is no distractions from the browser either. All right, so here we have this piece of text. Okay, all the bells and buttons and whistles of Word have gone. Excuse me. But we've got these icons, right? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different icons. Let me get rid of that. We've got all these different icons here, and it's good that it's icon driven rather than text driven, right? Because we want the students to be able to find these things really easily. But if you do hover, you do actually get the text there. So you can see this one is text preferences. So the first thing our little girl wants to do is she wants to change the text. And inside the document, right? So she doesn't have to go out to her browser settings or her app settings or her Mac settings or her PC settings. It's all done inside the document, which is amazing. Makes it really easy for our student. So what she can do is she can increase and decrease the text size according to what she needs. Now, in this case, I'm going to make it about that big. The other thing that she can do is she can increase the spacing. Now, remember, she's dyslexic. So what's important for her in terms of a thing called visual crowding, where all the words and lines start to run together, the text size, the increased spacing increases the spacing, I should say, between the letters, between the words, and between the lines. And that can be accentuated further by increasing the text size. All right, so that's going to help her. It puts spaces between the words and helps her know exactly where the words begin and where the words end. Now we've got 3 fonts here which lend themselves to simplicity, which is really important. So they're not fancy fonts. We've got Calibri, Sitka, and of course every primary teacher's favorite, Comic Sans, which looks a lot like handwritten text. All right, but I'm going to stick with Calibri for now. We also have the ability to change the colors. All right, so whatever's easier on the eyes according to the lighting in the room or the computer that she's using, she can change it to dark theme. She can change colors like this, but let's stick it with light theme for today. All right, so you can see that here in the text preferences, she's able to make all these changes. Now, when she makes these changes and she leaves the Immersive Reader, when she comes back, they will remain as is. Now, I've dialed it right back so you could have a look at how to set this up. But if I'd set this up in advance, it will remain right across my apps, whether I'm on a desktop app or whether I'm on a fully installed app, it will remain as is. Now, the other thing we've got here is, oh, actually, I'll tell you what I'm going to do first. I'm going to click on the play button. Now, unfortunately for you, you're probably unable to hear that. I don't know. I hope you can. But what's happening right now is that's actually reading with an Australian accent. All right. So it's actually reading in a very natural sounding voice straight through. Now, again, I just know the limitations of this Teams live event, that it's difficult for you to hear the sound, but you have to trust me. There's a very nice, natural sounding Aussie accent playing through here. And you'll also notice that as it plays, it's highlighting the words, and that is in sync with the audio. All right. So when you have a go back on your own machine, please have a play and listen nicely to the voice. But I'll play it for you anyway. Okay, so it's highlighting the words in sync, right? So it's imitating the idea of a person pointing along. Like, for example, I might be pointing along with my finger in real life, but here in the virtual world, it's simulating that. Can you slow it down? Yes, you can. Can you speed it up? Yes, you can. It can go 2.5 times sort of natural, and you'll find that some kids, especially those that may not have any sort of cognitive impairment, they just maybe have low vision or maybe they're dyslexic, they actually will want it to go much faster than a natural sounding voice. All right, so that's
Troy.
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Just one more question regarding Immersive Reader. Are they the only fonts that can be used?
They are the only fonts, just those 3 fonts.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, cool. All right, so the other thing that we get to do with Immersive Reader is we get to syllabify. So in other words, we've got an artificial intelligence that's connected here. And remember, we must be connected to the internet for Immersive Reader to work. There is an extension for Windows 10 to have it offline, but for most of us, we're going to need to be online. But you can see what it's done here is it's actually broken those multi-syllable words down into syllables, right? So that's going to help the student sound it out. So again, we're imitating the way teachers teach to read. The other thing we can do is we can highlight the parts of speech, the nouns, the verbs, adjectives and adverbs, and we can change the colors of those as well. So that's really important for kids that have trouble distinguishing colors that are too similar. You might want to make them very, very distant from each other. So you can see here I've got a purple. It may be better to actually make that green. And for kids that really can't distinguish the colors, then we can click on the show labels here. All right, and then you can see there that all my parts of speech have been highlighted. Now, again, we're using an AI there, and what the artificial intelligence is doing is it's contextualizing the sentence. So it's reading the sentences. All right, so you can see that when we see tag as a noun, I played tag, it's showing it as a noun. But when we see tag as a verb, like I tagged you or I tried to tag you, then we'll see it will actually come up as a verb. So it's pretty cool that it will actually contextualize those parts of speech according to the way it's used in the sentence. All right, now the next thing I want to show you is what we call line focus. So we can go 1, 3, and 5 lines, all right, depending on how many lines we want. So again, reducing distraction, right? So once upon a time, teachers would actually use rulers or pieces of paper. Sometimes you can even get specifically made devices that will cover up parts of the text so the student can focus even more. So now when we play, I wish you could hear that, but it's again right in sync with that, and it's actually, you know, pointing to each word while reducing those distractions even further. All right, now I'm going to turn that off because the next thing I want to show you is Picture Dictionary. Now, Picture Dictionary is powered by Boardmaker. So if you know anyone in the remedial space, they will tell you that Boardmaker is actually quite well used and well known. But when we turn the Picture Dictionary on, what happens is when I click on a word, for example, like played, now I get picture prompts. Okay, now these aren't contextualized. These are just going to show you all the different various meanings of the word. Or if we click on puppy, we see we get that, but we can also listen to that word. All right, so forgive me, I know you can't hear it, but actually that just said puppy. And then we've also got the text there as well. All right, so when students need help from an auditory sense, they can listen to the whole text, or they can just listen to individual words that they're struggling with, right? Because we want to balance that challenge and support. If we have too much challenge, it's too hard, students won't advance. And if we have too much support, they don't grow and they don't develop and they don't advance either. So we just need to make sure that students turn on what they need and don't turn on what they don't need. But you can see here, when I click on these words, we can see house. It's got these two different various meanings. That's your Harry Potter meaning of house, and that's your, you know, live-in version of house. Okay, so that's what that looks like, and that's Picture Dictionary. Now, I want to remind you that a moment ago, our student was faced with this, Okay, and she was unable to advance fast enough to keep up with everyone else in the class, whether that's remotely or sitting in a classroom with everybody. But when she clicks Immersive Reader, it's going to look exactly like she has it, and it will also give her the relevant levels of support that she needs, regardless of what the original text looks like and regardless of the app as well. So that will actually carry across into different apps, and we'll have a bit of a talk about that later. All right, so that's that, okay? But there's one more feature I want to show you, but I need to tell you a bit of a different story. So this time I want you to imagine that we've got a Korean student who's come to Australia quite recently. This little Korean boy, he's a very intelligent boy, very, very smart, but obviously English is not his first language, right? And his English is actually quite good, but occasionally he needs a little bit of support. So what we've done is we've actually built the translate feature or the translate function into Immersive Reader. So if I click down here and find Korean and look at all the different languages that it will translate from and into, it's quite amazing. But if I come in here and click on Korean, now what happens is when I click on these words that I'm struggling with, like let's say a word that our little boy is struggling with, the word wrestled, when I click on it, I can see it and hear it in Korean. And in English, and I can see it and hear it in Korean. Wrestling is how you say that in Korean. All right, so you can see there, and unfortunately you can't hear it, but you can at least see that you can get it in English and Korean. But where it gets really amazing, I'm just going to maximize that for us again. Where it gets really amazing is when I translate the entire document. Now, again, I wish that I could actually let you hear this. Please, after this webinar, go and open up Word Online and try this for yourself. But you can see what it's done here. I have the ability to look at it in the original English, and I have the ability to look at it in Korean. But please know it will translate lots of different languages into English and lots of different languages into lots of different languages, right? It's not just English to Korean or, you know, English to other things. It's other things, other languages to other languages. But nevertheless, when I hit play, that's now actually reading very fluently and very naturally in Korean. So depending on the level of support our little boy needs, whether he needs the entire document read to him in Korean or whether he only needs individual words, he can actually decide that. So for a teacher who's going to make this available to her students, it's really key that she deliver this in something like Word or in something like Word Online so that the students can have that kind of immersive reader support delivered to them by default. Okay. Now, I just want to share with you some of the ways that this is being used because I don't want it to just be seen as a remedial tool. I want it to be seen as a mainstream tool as well. So you can actually make things like sight words, sight word lists, deliver it in Word or OneNote or one of these other apps, and the students can actually see the words and hear the words, have them read to them. Some of the words are going to have a picture dictionary, etc. And it just makes sight word learning and sight word recognition a little bit more fun. Now, obviously, another way that we could use it is for listening posts and independent reading stations. So this little boy is at home. The teacher has published a document. Maybe it's a reader or something that she's made available. And what he can do is actually play that and have it like an independent listening post. All right. So he can have the computer reading the story to him. And again, when you hear those natural sounding voices that we have in Immersive Reader, it's going to blow you away at how powerful this could be. I talked to you before about the fact that it's global. It will not only do that translation, but if you cut and paste, you know, Chinese, Dutch, Italian, Spanish, etc., into a Word document, it will recognize that as those languages and read in those languages. And it will also let you translate those back into English, which is cool. So have a look at this quote here. I really like this. This is one of the studies that was conducted, and a 4th grade teacher in that study said it's an empowering tool. It evens the playing field for kids who are struggling readers. It allows them to feel more like independent learners, not depending on the teacher and not depending on peers. So that technology actually steps in and does the work. And especially when we are in that remote learning situation, being able to give those kids that level of support is phenomenal. Another study that was carried out showed that nearly all of the study teachers mentioned how it enabled their readers, regardless of skill level, to access content aimed at a higher reading level. In this case, access means comprehension of content that had previously been unavailable. What I mean there is that you could be giving a year 9 level text to grade 5s and it can be read to them. All right, so text that you would have normally had to really worked hard to unpack for the students, etc. Now you can actually let the Immersive Reader read it to the students, which is going to increase their comprehension. So again, mainstream, not just a remedial tool. In terms of dyslexia, there was a study done by the British Dyslexia Association and Noel Hill, and they found that 16 out of 18 children showed improved behaviour and 11 out of 16 saw their reading comprehension scores get better by using Immersive Reader. So these slides, as I said, will be made available to you, and you'll be able to click on these slides and it'll take you to those studies and you can see those results for yourself. But remembering, for us, it's actually going to make sure that the students are connecting to the content remotely and also improve their reading comprehension. And another study that we conducted as well, sorry, that we didn't conduct, this was another third-party study, showed those reading comprehension scores improved, etc. And you can click on those links to access that. All right, so the million-dollar question is, where do we get Immersive Reader? How do we access Immersive Reader? Well, luckily for us, it's free for everybody in the Department of Education Victoria through Office 365. Most other schools have got access to that as well. So you need to make sure that your students are onboarded into 365. And once they are, then they can access all this through 365. But for consumers, there's what's called Office Online, which is free for everybody. So you can go to Microsoft.com or even Office.com, create a brand new account, and you will get some of the Office 365 features, not all of them, but definitely you've got Immersive Reader available to you. And of course, it's also available in Teams. Now, in terms of OneNote, I want to show you what it looks like inside OneNote. It's very, very similar. Just give me a moment. I'm going to pop over into my OneNote app, and you can see that inside OneNote, and whether it's OneNote Online, OneNote for Windows 10, or even OneNote 2016, you've actually got Immersive Reader. And again, it lives over here in the View tab and Immersive Reader, or you can use the Tell Me What You Want to Do, and you can find it through there. But when I click on Immersive Reader, hey presto, there it is. Now, obviously, for some reason, it hasn't carried those settings over, but usually it will. So you'll have to forgive me for that. I'm not quite sure why that's happening, but nevertheless, you've got that same experience through OneNote. All right, let's keep moving. Now, the cool thing about it is native to the OneNote for iPad app and the OneNote for Mac app. All right, so you're not necessarily going to find it in Word for these apps, okay, for these tools, but you can find it in Word Online. But nevertheless, if you want to use it in an app, then please make sure that you're using OneNote for iPad and OneNote for Mac, and then you'll be able to access Immersive Reader. Now, another thing I want to tell you about is a thing called Office Lens. All right, now I know you're not going to be able to hear my video. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to show you this video, and I'm just going to talk over the top of it. I hope you don't mind. I'm going to do the best job that I can. But the Office Lens is an app, and Office Lens is an app for iPhone, for your Android phone, and also for your Windows PC. Okay, you can also get it for the iPad, of course. You can get it for the iPhone, you can get it for the iPad. And the Office Lens app has what's called optical character recognition in it, and it does some amazing things. So I'm just going to show you this now. And I'm just going to turn on the caption so you can see it there. So it turns your iPhone into a scanner, all right? So it crops, straightens, and enhances and makes pictures of your whiteboards and documents readable. So how do you save and share your meeting notes on the whiteboard? So for example, if you are wanting to capture the notes on the whiteboard because you are able to see that it actually takes it from any angle, sharpens it and straightens it, and then throws it straight into your environment. So a number of apps throw it into there. Where it gets really cool is So you can see here that I'm taking a document, a photo of a document in document mode inside Office Lens, drop it into any of my tools, whether it's Word or OneNote, and you can see here that this person's taken a photo, dropped it in, and now they're able to type straight into their text. Sorry, straight into that account. Layout is preserved, text is automatically recognized, and you can start editing right away, which is pretty cool. So what I'm going to do now, I hope you don't mind, is I'm just going to show you what happens with a piece of text that I've actually used Office Lens, and then what I did was I dropped it into OneNote. So I've used my iPad or my iPhone or my Android phone or even my Windows machine. I've used the camera on that, and I've taken a photograph of a piece of text. Now what happens is when it drops it into OneNote, Immersive Reader is going to do some amazing things. Look what happens here. So when I click on that, what happens is I have the full Immersive Reader experience, changing the text size, changing the font, the spacing, the colors. I can syllabify parts of speech, whichever ones are relevant to me. I can show the labels. I can do line focus, picture dictionary, and I can also do full translation from a photograph of the text using Office Lens. All right, so what that means is students that are struggling with a handout or maybe a textbook page, they can actually use Office Lens, take a photograph of that, and then have that full Immersive Reader experience, including the read aloud, right? Translation speed, everything happens in there. So that's really quite amazing, right? So that's the relationship of Office Lens to Immersive Reader. Now, the other thing is there is an Immersive Reader function inside Office Lens, so I'm unable to show you because I'm not going to be using my camera today, but you can actually download that, take a photograph of text, click on the Immersive Reader button, and you can have the text read to you from inside your device, which is really very, very cool. All right, now the next one I want to show you is Immersive Reader inside the Microsoft Edge browser. Now, once upon a time, Microsoft dominated the world with Internet Explorer, and now I know a lot of you are using things like Chrome and Firefox, etc. And Microsoft has actually come out with a new browser which is called Edge. So this is only relevant to people that are using Windows 10 machines, and you do need to make sure that all your updates are run for Windows 10, or you're not going to see all these features. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you into, I'm going to jump out of this one here, excuse me. I'm going to take you into an article that I have. And this article, yep, okay, I accept cookies, no worries. This article that I have is from National Geographic Kids. Now, I want you to have a look at this website. You can see here, it's called The Phases of the Moon. Look at all the ads and the links and the graphics and everything that's going on. There's just so much going on that page that for a lot of our students who struggle, there's just too much and there's too many distractions, whether it's ADD or some other challenge that the student's facing. So what we've got is we've got Immersive Reader. You can see it's living up here. Immersive Reader lives inside the Edge browser. So when I click on the Immersive Reader button, look what happens. I get all the bells and whistles, etc., of that article stripped away. All right. Now I have my read aloud. Now I wish I could let you hear this, but it's actually quite amazing. The ability to read with the Aussie accent, and I can change those voice options, right? I can slow it down, speed it up, and I can even change my accents. Now I'm going to change that back to Australian, and I can add more voices as well. All right. Now, the other thing that we can do in there is just like we've seen before in Immersive Reader, I can change the text size. I can increase the spacing. All right. And I can also change the themes and the colors. All right. Now, I do want to point out to you that this does not strip the images away. The other version of Immersive Reader strips the images away. This doesn't, because to strip images from a web page would really make it sort of, useless in a lot of ways. So that's all there for you. Now we also have the reading preferences, right? So I've got the line focus, whether I want to be 1, 3, and 5 again. And then I've also got my grammar tools, so I can syllabify, break it down into syllables. I can highlight my nouns, my verbs, my adjectives. Adverbs aren't there yet, but watch this space, and I can also throw in the labels. All right, so that's Immersive Reader for web pages. So teaching your students to download the Edge browser, making sure that their Windows 10 versions are updated and that all the updates have been installed, and then you're going to have a great experience of that. Now, can I just point out that what happens with this a lot is that some websites actually see this as an ad stripper because it strips away all those distractions, and it will disable this. So it's not going to work on every page, but trust me, it's going to work on a lot of your articles, and especially, you know, newspaper websites and things like that. So go in and have a go. What I have found is that sometimes on the same website, it'll work on some pages and not on others. So keep an eye out for that, and just know that it's not broken. Sometimes the ad blocker software, it's seen as ad blocker software. Okay, so that's Immersive Reader in Edge. Let's keep going, shall we? Now, another one I want to show you now is Immersive Reader in Forms. So if you were able to access my webinar the other day and had a look at what I was showing you with assessment in Forms, you'd know that Forms is an amazing tool, very, very cool. When I click on my Office 365 summative assessment here, so this is the quiz that I built, you can see that when I go into view mode, this is what the student sees. Each one of these questions has got an Immersive Reader button, which means that the student can actually have their quiz or their assessment read to them using Immersive Reader. Okay, so you can see here now it's remembering my settings, but it's highlighted my nouns and verbs, but I could actually have that read to me. All right, so it's going to read the question. It's also going to read my answers, and then it even gives students instructions at the end that says, close the reader to input your answer. So after they've looked at that, they've understood that, they've had it read to them, they can go back and then input their answer. So that's what that looks like in Forms, which is pretty cool. So remember, Immersive Reader is living inside of Forms. Now, the other place that it lives, which is really good, is Immersive Reader inside Outlook. Now, there is a version of inside the installed version of Outlook, but where you get the best experience is Outlook for the web. So you can see here that I've got a letter that I've read to myself, that I've written to myself, and I said here it's a bit weird that I'm writing to myself, but look what happens when I click up here on these ellipses. I get a bit distracted sometimes and try this one. It doesn't work down here. We've got to come up here, and then we click on Show in Immersive Reader. So what that means is now the students can have their emails read to them. And for those of you in secondary and upper primary who are writing to your students through emails all the time, and especially now, this allows them to actually have their emails read to them. Okay, so that's really, really key. So please keep that in mind. All right. The last thing I want to share with you, actually, it's not the last thing I want to show you. The next thing I want to share with you is that we have built Immersive Reader into Minecraft Education Edition. So Minecraft traditionally didn't speak to you, but now it can. So you can see here that on this sign, there's a little button there, okay, which is going to, when I click it, it opens Immersive Reader. And then you get the full Immersive Reader experience from inside Minecraft Education Edition. And we've even, look at this, we've even put in some of those Minecraft words. We've even put them into the picture dictionary, which is awesome. So you get that full Immersive Reader experience inside Minecraft for those kids that love Minecraft, but obviously have trouble with some of the text. All right, now let's keep going, because we're at 1:45 and I want to have some time for questions. So let's talk about Immersive Reader inside Teams. Now, when we're inside Immersive Reader, I want you to remember that when we have the chat, for example, that chat there, so if you haven't done my Teams webinar, please go back and explore that, and it'll tell you all about the awesomeness of Teams. But the chat is a really important way for teachers to be communicating with their students. All right, so you can see here that there's a bit of a chat going on here between myself and Steve. What I can do is when I click on the ellipses, I can actually have the chat read to me by Immersive Reader. So I get that full Immersive Reader experience, okay? And each one of these needs to be read. So for example, if there was one that was with a lot of text, I could actually have that whole thing read to me, small ones as well. But you can see here, he's telling me he's doing trombone practice. I come down here to Immersive Reader and give that a moment to load. There it is. And I could actually have that read to me as a student. So students are not locked out of the chat features in Teams. All right, so Immersive Reader in Teams chat. But remembering too that we can come into Immersive Reader, so we can find Immersive Reader also inside Word Online, inside Teams. So if I publish a document in Teams, so what I did there was I just had this document which is sitting in my file section, student opens it up, okay, and that student may look at that and have some issues reading it, so they just click on the edit button to open it up. And then they're in Word Online and they can use Immersive Reader and there it lives there. So I won't take you through and show you that, but you've seen that before. So pretty cool. All right, the ability to have Immersive Reader in our OneNote documents inside Microsoft Teams, in our chat inside Microsoft Teams. It's really quite phenomenal. But remembering too, because all these things are brought into Teams, we can have Immersive Reader inside OneNote inside Teams, Immersive Reader inside Forms inside Teams, Immersive Reader inside Word inside Teams, and it's all there by default. You don't need to be switching anything on. Okay, let's talk a little bit about some of these other apps that have actually built Immersive Reader in. Now, what Microsoft have done is they have made the Immersive Reader API, the Immersive Reader software, free to companies. All right, so any company that wants to build Immersive Reader into its apps can do so for free. All right, and that's the link down the bottom there when you get these slides. So you can reach out to some of your favorite apps and you can say, hey, did you know that you can have Immersive Reader for free? And it takes about a day for them to build it in. So you can see here, Oxford University Press have already done so, Bunsey have done it, Wakelet have done it, and I know even Canvas, the LMS, has now built that in as well. All right, so don't look at your apps and say, oh, it doesn't have Immersive Reader, too bad. Reach out to the publisher of your app and let them know you want to build Immersive Reader, that they can build Immersive Reader into it for free. All right, we're nearly there. Let's talk quickly about next steps. So when you get these slides, you're going to see that you've got this, and let me just close that down like that. You've got these links. So we've got this one called All About Immersive Reader. This is a fantastic web page which has got everything that you need to know about Immersive Reader, so you can share it with the students, share it with families, share it with colleagues. All right, it's absolutely brilliant, and I do want you to go in and have a look through that. We also have an online course, so you can get some PD. You can get an hour's worth of PD by going in and learning not just about Immersive Reader, but some of our other tools as well. So remember, it doesn't matter whether you're on a Mac, whether you're on a PC, whether you're on an iPad, you can still have a lot of these tools right across 365. I've got some links here about, for example, our Disabilities Answers Desk. So you can actually ring a phone number and be speaking to someone in real time and they can help you with your accessibility needs. We've got our accessibility YouTube channel. Go in and watch some videos, not just about Immersive Reader, but about other things as well. You can give your feedback about tools, right? So if you click on that link, it'll open up our feedback portal and you can say, hey, this is what I need. This is what would be better. Give advice to the developers. That's Microsoft Enable, which is our accessibility channel on Twitter. And I've also thrown in a couple of really nice ebooks. This one down here, the Ability Hacks, tells the story of how Immersive Reader was made. What I would love you to do, though, as well, is I would like you to redefine what's possible in your school and in your community, even remotely. So tell students, teachers, aides, support professionals, principals, the parents, tell them all about Immersive Reader, share this webinar with them, share that Immersive Reader page that I showed you a moment ago with them, and let people discover this and start to use this. It is free for them to use. There's the link for our newsletter if you want to access that. I've also got these links for you. Remember, when you access the webinars, you can have these links, the recordings, but aka.ms Microsoft Remote Learning, aka.ms/Vic Events for our webinars, and also support.microsoft.com/education. There's a learning tools page there, which will take you through Immersive Reader and some of our other tools as well. Lastly, get the slides and the recordings. So write this one down, aka.ms/DET webinars, aka.ms/DET webinars. This is the recordings, so you can actually share this out. I will make sure that this recording and these slides are in there by tomorrow, so you can check back tomorrow and download that. But for those of you that are on this call live, you will get a link to the recording that you can access as well at the end of this. So there's how you can connect with me. There's my email address. There's also, you can find me on Twitter, find me on LinkedIn, and also find me on Facebook. All right, I've talked at a million miles an hour because I had so much that I wanted to get through, but that's Immersive Reader in a nutshell, and I hope that's been quite useful to you. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask Anna to come off mute and share any questions that she thinks are relevant to today's workshop about Immersive Reader.
Hi, Troy. Okay, we've got a couple of questions. Going back all the way to your webinars, I have an anonymous person asking if it'll be an issue if they logged in to, if they sign up to Eventbrite with the private email.
No, that's not an issue at all. No problem.
Okay, perfect. And a lot of questions about if the recording of this session will be available.
Yep, I've definitely shared that. So aka.ms/DET webinars.
Okay, perfect. And will they have access to the slide deck as well?
Yep, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll be in there. Check back tomorrow, and that'll be available for them.
Brilliant. Now, this question is a little bit general. Do you have any recommendations on how teachers should run video calls for secondary school students?
Yep, definitely. So you can go back to our first webinar, which is again found in aka.ms/DET webinars. And that webinar, actually, I'll just put that up on the screen for you. That our first webinar on Teams talks all about video and how to use video within Teams.
Brilliant. Next up is, this is regarding those extra features that you talked about, like immersive readers and the lens thing. Should we encourage our students and parents to upgrade their Office version so they can use those features?
Yeah, good one. So through the online, you don't obviously need to upgrade because the online version is the most up-to-date one, regardless of what you've got installed on your machine. But if you do want to upgrade your version of Office, if your students have an Office 365 account, that is that they have a school email address that will get them into here, office.com. As I've said before, what you do is you come over here to install Office, and you click here on Office 365 apps, and that will download the latest, greatest version of Office onto that student's machine or onto your machine, onto any machine. And each person gets 5 free copies. So each individual student and teacher can put this on 5 different devices, PC and Mac, right? It's free to download for the iPad, so go ahead. But there you go. Think about that. Each student and teacher in the Department of Education and Training in Victoria has 5 free copies of the latest, greatest version of Office, which is called Office 365 Pro Plus. So what you do is you come into office.com, sign in, click on Install Office, click that, follow the bouncing ball, and you'll get the instructions on how to install that. If you hit an error message, you may need to uninstall your current version of Office and then go through that process and install that. So yes, I would encourage them to upgrade to the latest version of Office, but I would also make sure that they understand they don't need to buy it, that the students can actually access it here. You can share this with family members. So if you've got 5 PCs and Macs in your house, then you've got 5 versions of the latest, greatest versions of Office to go onto those machines.
Great.
Any other questions?
Okay, this is a general question as well, but those features that you talked about, can I use these tools for early childhood children?
Certainly, but I would imagine remotely it's going to be difficult, at least in the setup stage. So you will need the parents to help out and help set that up. But most definitely you can use that in an early learning context.
Perfect. When you took the picture of the book using Lens, you placed it into OneNote. Can you move to Word, or is it only on OneNote?
Yes, you can drop it into Word. But to be able to use the OCR, the optical character recognition, you're not going to get that. It doesn't work in Word Online. All right. So my suggestion is if you want to look at that text and have the immersive reader from that photograph of text, then please drop it into OneNote. Now, I did forget to mention that you get that app from your Google Play Store if you're on an Android phone, or your Apple App Store if you're on an iPhone or an iPad.
Perfect. Sorry, just a second. Excuse me. Alrighty. So what do we have here? We have one more question at the moment. Is Immersive Reader embedded in Teams assignments to help students read the task? Can you copy an assignment link from Teams and then paste it to another document as an active hyperlink?
Yeah, that's right. So what I would do is just make sure that you put your instructions inside a Word document and then add that as a resource. So what I mean by that is when we're inside Teams, when we're setting an assignment, you can see here I've got some assignments that I've already built. Just give that a moment. So I can't use Immersive Reader to read this part of the assignment, but for example, as a form, then as soon as I open that up, it would have Immersive Reader inside forms. So if I come in here, you can see there's no Immersive Reader button. Let me give the student view. All right, there's an Immersive Reader button here in the student view. Okay, so the student can actually have everything here read to them. I could also make sure that the instructions and the links, etc., are put inside the documents that I'm giving as support. And because that's in Word Online, that will actually read, use Immersive Reader because it's inside Word. So from a student view, they can actually have the assignment read to them from here, but you can also doubly make sure by putting all the instructions inside a Word document, and then that can be read to them as well. That's pretty cool. All right, you know what I think? I think I'm going to end it there, Anna. So I just want to thank everybody for being a part of this today. I really appreciate people hanging around and getting information about this. It's really dear to my heart that we make sure students are getting the absolute best that they can from everything that's been purchased for you by your school or your education department. The other thing I want to remind you is this is the first of a couple, maybe 3 inclusive classroom webinars. So there's a whole lot more that I want to show you. So please tune in next time. So I'll let you say goodbye, Anna, and then I'll say goodbye, and then we'll see people later on.
Bye, Troy.
Okay, bye, Anna.